The Alforex Lux Series LED projectors that we have here today will be a premium option for all 2014 through 2018 Sierra owners looking for a powerful upgrade loaded with extra features. Now, the DOT approved Lux Series again that we have here will combine an LED loaded projector along with LED daytime running lights and sequential turn signals, all for right around that mid $700 price point for the pair. So the Lux Series that we're talking about here today is one of a few different headlight options from Alforex, and I would consider these to be the middle of the road option between the halogen equipped Pro Series on the lower side of things, and then the company's flagship headlight, the Nova Series, which is gonna round out their higher end. Now, I think the Lux is an awesome option for Sierra owners who want a quality LED headlight that will kick in some nice extras, but without completely breaking the bank. But let's talk a little bit more about what you are getting here with the Lux Series. And right off the bat, guys, again, these will convert your 4th gen Sierra's factory halogen headlight to a modern and bright LED. Now, they're gonna use a dual beam projector that will dramatically increase your nighttime visibility, your throw range, and even cutoff. Now, from there, Alforex adds a ton of additional LED lighting from the C-shaped bar running the kind of perimeter or the outside of the housing here, to the 3 horizontal rows of LEDs next to the projector on the inside, and those are going to work in conjunction with the bright white lights for your daytime running lights. Now, going back to those C-shaped running lights that we have here kind of framing up your projector, guys, I do want to mention those have what is called switchback technology built in. So basically, they're going to switch from white, which is your DRL color, basically whenever the parking lights or headlights have been switched on. But then once you fire up those turn signals, that white is going to turn to amber for your turn signal functionality. And what's even cooler is that they kick in that very cool sequential functionality. So basically the light is going to illuminate from top to bottom, kind of in a pulsating manner, and that is just going to give the turn signals a little bit more detail and just contribute to a very custom look. Now, on top of that, one of my favorite parts here about this light is the unique activation feature, which basically puts on a little light show anytime you unlock your Sierra. And it's something that you really don't find with a lot of aftermarket headlights, but something Alforex does do very well. And again, it just adds a little bit more of that quality appearance. Now, all of that lighting, both your primary headlights and all the secondary auxiliary LEDs, they've all been loaded into a high quality black polypropylene housing and then topped off with a unique polycarbonate lens that actually has an anti-fog agent baked in along with a UV agent baked in. So not only is this going to help prevent any condensation or fogging in bad weather, but at the same time, it's also going to prevent any yellowing or fading over the years, especially if you live in a very, very sunny climate. Now, the headlights do also include all the necessary harnesses. They are completely plug and play here, guys, and they are fully adjustable as well. Always like to point that out because it allows you to aim them properly, not only after the install, but if you ever do some suspension work to your Sierra, you can kind of dial these things in as needed. I do also want to finalize here, guys, in saying that these things have been given both the DOT and the SAE stamp of approval, and that is going to make them legal for use in all 50 states. Price point for the Lux headlight here will hover right around that mid $700 range for the pair, which I would say for a quality headlight packing a 100% LED operation, it's gonna be extremely fair at the end of the day. Now, you can certainly spend a lot more by going with the Nova series, also from Alforex, or even some of the Morimoto options, but to me, you're not exactly getting a ton of extra performance with the extra money that you spend on some of those higher end options. Instead, you're just gonna be getting a little bit nicer hardware and maybe a little bit more robust of a warranty. But now we want to segue into our installation portion of the video, show you what it takes to get the new Lux Series projectors in place on your Sierra at home. Site is going to call this one a middle of the road 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, at least an hour, maybe a little bit more depending on how fast you like to work, basically to knock these out from start to finish. But without further ado, guys, let's throw it out to the shop here for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, needle nose pliers, wire strippers and crimpers, a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 1/4 inch ratchet, a T15 Torx wrench, an extension, a couple butt connectors, a 1/4 inch and 3/8 7mm socket, a 10mm socket, and some wire. What's up guys? Today we're installing a set of headlights on our Sierra, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is remove our radiator cover. We have 12 of these push clips holding it in. So we'll grab a clip remover tool to pop these out. And then with all of our clips removed, we can pull our cover off and remove it. Next, we can remove the 4 10mm bolts holding in our grill at the top with a 10mm socket. Next, we can come down into our wheel well. We have this 7mm bolt we're gonna have to remove. It's right above the edge of our bumper here. So we'll grab a 7mm socket and pull that out. And then we have a bolt hiding behind this, so we're gonna have to pop this piece out. To get a little bit of extra movement out of it, we can remove this T15 Torx screw right up here. I've got a T15 Torx wrench. Now with that removed, we can pull out on this plastic trim, and that's gonna expose the 7mm bolt tucked up in here. So we're gonna have to get a 1/4" drive ratchet with a shallow 7mm socket to fit in there. And now with everything removed that we need, we can pull back on this lower trim and pop it out of place. And then we can do the same thing on the other side and then pop this out. And now we can just work our way across our lower trim piece, popping out all the clips by wiggling it back and forth. Now for these center ones, if you can't get them to release, you can go underneath the bumper and push up on the tabs to pop them out. Now with our lower trim removed, it will expose a bolt down here holding our grill in. There's one on each side. So we'll take a 10mm socket to pop that out. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. And now as we move to the center of our grill, we have another bolt here, as well as a matching one on the other side. So again, 10mm socket, we'll remove this and then do the same on the other side. And now with all of our bolts removed, we can pull straight back on our grill to remove it. So now we're ready to remove our headlight. We have 2 10mm bolts on the bottom here, one on the inside, one on the outside. So we'll grab our 10mm socket for both of these. And now up top, we have our last 2 10mm bolts. We'll grab our 10mm socket to pull out. Now with all of our bolts removed, we'll lift up on our headlight to pop it out of place. And then we'll just push in on the black tab of our connector to pop that out. And you can repeat that same process on the other side. Now before we get to installing our headlights, the first thing we need to do is install our fuse tap. Now this harness, depending on how your battery is set up, might be a little too short. For us, our fuse box is on the driver's side and our battery is on the passenger side, so we're gonna have to lengthen this harness about 5 feet. If you have both your battery and fuse box on the driver's side, you won't need to do anything to your harness. So I've got 5 feet of extra wire here. We're gonna cut. Got a couple butt connectors to crimp down so that we can extend this. So now the gray wire that's running to our fuse tap is the wire that we're gonna be lengthening. So you can just cut it somewhere in the middle. You want to make sure you don't cut too close to the end because then you might not be able to get a connection with your butt connector. So let's go right in the middle here. And then we'll take wire strippers, strip back some lead on the end of our wire. And we'll take our first butt connector, twist up that lead, slide the connector over our wire, and use wire crimpers to crimp down on that. And then we can grab our wire we're extending it with, strip back some lead, twist it up, slide that into the opposite end of our butt connector, and then take our wire crimpers and crimp down on it. Make sure you have a good connection. And then you can grab the other end of your wire that you're extending it with, strip back and twist up your lead. Slide a second butt connector over that wire. Crimp it down. And then grab the other side of your gray wire. Slide that into your butt connector. And then we can get this installed onto the truck. So now I've got our wire harness laid out across the engine bay, how it's gonna go. We've got this shorter wire with the connector that's gonna go to our passenger side headlight bucket. We've got the longer wire with the connector that's gonna run across the front to our driver side headlight bucket. I've got our two battery terminal connectors right over here by the battery, and then I've got our fuse tap running across the back. We can follow this harness back here across to the fuse box on the other side. So now we'll start with our two battery terminals. On our positive, we have this little hook over here that we'll have to pull up to pop that open. And then we can take a 10mm socket to loosen up the nut. And then we're going to slide that terminal connector underneath the nut just like that. And then we can tighten it back down. Close our cap, come back to our negative, same thing, 10mm socket. And then we'll get our negative connector, slide that behind our nut, and tighten it back down. And then we can tuck all of this back behind our battery, and we'll start running our fuse tap line. So now we'll grab some zip ties, and we're just gonna be following this harness across the back side of the engine bay all the way across. Then you can grab a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off the excess of your zip tie. And then you can just repeat that same thing, following all the way across. Next, we can throw one more zip tie over here above the brake booster, and then we can run this to our fuse box. So now we can come to our fuse box, pop this open, and slide our fuse tap into place. So we have these two little hooks that you'll have to pull back on. Just pop the cover off, and then you can pull it forward. And we're gonna be looking for the F39 fuse, which is this 10 amp right in the middle here. Grab a pair of needle nose pliers to pull that out. And then you'll grab your fuse tap. There's already one fuse in here. And then we're just gonna add the fuse we just pulled out. And then we're gonna drop that into the same spot that we just pulled our fuse out of. just run this out of the side of our box. And reinstall our cover. Next, we can grab the wire that we're going to be running over to our driver's side headlight bucket. We can follow this right here. We'll go underneath of here, and then we have these oval holes that we can run a zip tie through to keep this up and out of the way. So now you can grab your zip tie. And then we'll pull the slack and zip tie that down. And then you can take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off the excess of your zip tie. And then we'll do another one on the other side here. Pull the slack, tighten it down, and then cut the excess off. And now we can run our wire into our driver's side headlight bucket. I'm going to go right underneath here once again. And then drop that down into our headlight bucket. Now we do have a couple options on these headlights to configure. You have a white or amber daytime running light. Now to switch that, we're gonna have to pop this cover off, and there's a connector that you're either gonna want connected or disconnected to make that switch. So to pop off our cover, we have 4 Phillips head screws, so we'll grab a Phillips head screwdriver to remove. And now with that cover removed, we can find our 2 gray wires. If you leave this connector disconnected, your DRLs will be white. If you plug this in, like that, that'll switch them to amber. Now for our purposes, we're gonna be showing this with the white, so we'll leave that disconnected, throw our cover back on, and reinstall our 4 screws. And then if you're switching to ambers, you can do that same thing for the other headlight, and we can get these on the truck. So now we can connect the 2 connectors on our headlight. This brown wire is going to go to the red. And then we can get our body harness connector plugged in. And then with those connected, we can slide this into place. And now we can go up top and reinstall our 2 bolts. And tighten those down with a 10mm socket. And now we'll go to the bottom of our headlight and reinstall our last 2 bolts. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can reinstall our grille. Next, we can reinstall our 4 upper grille bolts. And then we'll grab our 10mm socket and tighten all of these down. Now we can reinstall our radiator cover. and all of the push clips that hold it in. Next, we can reinstall our lower grill bolts. Now, since those clips are a little recessed in there, I've got a little extension with a 10mm socket to get these two bolts started, and then we can throw our ratchet on the other side to tighten them down. And then you can do that same thing with the other two on the other side. Next, we can reinstall our lower trim piece. Next, we can come back into our wheel well and reinstall this bolt first. And then we'll get our 7mm socket on the end of that bolt. And then we can take our lip here and click it back into place. And then thread in our other 7mm bolt. Take a 7mm socket to tighten that down. And then we can also reinstall that T15 Torx screw at the top. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Alpharex Lux Series LED projector headlights with black housing and clear lens for your 2014 to 18 Sierra 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Sierra, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.